Welcome to another episode of Five Lemons Laughing. I'm Amanda, and I'm here with Morgan, Drusilla, and Penny. Melissa is transitioning to living in Europe, so she won't be here the next 2 weeks, and we send her lots of love and blessings on this move for her. Today, we're focusing on masculinity, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers listening. So what if the men in our lives actually have something to teach us about letting go of all the shoulds? This week, we're flipping the script and taking a fresh look at the gifts of masculine energy. Things like presence, clarity, action, and that mysteriously magical ability to move through life without drowning in guilt. How do they do that? For our mostly female audience, we're exploring how tapping into those qualities can bring more balance, more boldness, and even a little more freedom. Let's dive in and see what happens when we let ourselves be a little bit more decisive, a little less apologetic, and a whole lot more ourselves.
I love it.
Yeah.
I do too.
Thank you, Amanda. What a great topic. So, what about you, ladies? What's one quality that you admire up as confidence or presence or freedom from guilt? That's a big one. And how has it inspired you to let go of your own shoulds and embrace more ease in your life? Something like that.
That's a great one, Morgan. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know we just came off an episode talking about shoulds, but I will say this. I have not thought about how, because I'm not using the word should, right? I'm not thinking about how much I have been shaming or guilting the men that I know into thinking that they should do, into my way of thinking about how they should live their lives. I'm thinking about
so that hurt.
They should live their lives, right?
That hit a chord of truth right there.
And I mentioned on an episode, I think a few weeks ago, about my husband thinking about moving away from Atlanta to Tampa, Florida, to work for the same company, a different position, and it would be a promotion opportunity for him. And I said to him, did you think about that both of your daughters actually moved back here to be with you because you're here, we're here, and the grandbaby is 3 years old and he just adores her. And just him contemplating made me go into this whole thing, this fit about how dare you think about leaving your granddaughter and your daughters and moving away from this career opportunity, like shaming him into thinking about what's important for him as if he can't figure that out on his own, right? And as if he doesn't have the right to make decisions just based on his preference and his choices. And until we started talking about this topic, it never dawned on me that I was guilting and shaming him with my own personal shoulds to him. So I think this topic is so amazing. And I am ready to just dive into this and learn more about myself, I guess.
Yeah.
So what about you all? Any new revelations or thoughts about the men in your lives and how their freedom just has been, this is just such an awakening for me.
That.
I was laughing so much because it's so true, right? I definitely think that for some reason in there that I need to change my husband's opinions about stuff and steer him in directions when he is a grown ass man, right? If I have the ability to make decisions, so does he. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, something that you said jumped out at me, Drusilla, and I don't even think I heard it in the correct context necessarily, but maybe I did. But the words I heard were something like not constantly thinking about how others should live their lives. And it's true. When you said that, I immediately flashed back to a time when we were coming back from being 4 months on a road trip in the RV, and John Mark was just 4 months clean and sober. And we were coming back into the community, and we went up to a restaurant where there was live music, and some of our buddies were going to be there. And it was going to be our first time seeing everybody since we got back. And one of his buddies that was playing was really inebriated, and I just said some off comment like, aren't you so glad that, or I don't remember what I said, but it was a judgy comment like, aren't you so glad that you don't live like that anymore? Or don't you think that's so gross now that you don't drink like that anymore? And he just looked at me like I had two heads, and he was like, no, I don't even think about it. I mean, he can do whatever he wants to do. And it was just like, oh my God, look at me being so judgy, and John Mark, being so like light years ahead of me in that regard. And it's true. Like, I think, I don't know if it's like that, some kind of like mothering gene that we all carry as females that has us running around thinking about ways people could be living their lives better. But I just don't think men live in that way for the most part. By and large, I know it's a generalization, but I don't think men are going around thinking about how other people should be doing things differently or better for themselves. It was a very like aha moment for me.
That's great, Morgan, to have, first of all, to have those realizations and then to put it in there. Because what it reminded me is that Mike, like, just assumes that people are grown, right? Just assumes that they can, they have a mind and they can make their own decisions, and they don't need his, they don't need whatever.
His fathering.
Yeah. 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 Because, like, not as much anymore. I think maybe I'm getting some masculinity, but like giving people advice and telling them how to do stuff or thinking that they can't do it, it's a whole different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like this conversation because I too, Morgan, have realized that I've been mothering my husband, and it's not good. It's not good. It just creates codependent relationships is what it's creating. And yeah, and we've been together for 35 years. And so it's been maybe, I don't know, the last, 5-10 years that I've realized it. So there's 25 years of undoing shit that I'm working with,
Mm-hmm.
So holy buckets. It's, those old patterns.
I will even say just last night, and I know this episode was coming up today. I'm just thinking about it. Just last night, my one of my close girlfriends had her 48th birthday party. And my husband and I, of course, I've known her almost as long as I've known him. I met them around the same time. So she's been in our lives the whole time. And he comes home from work and says he's too tired and he doesn't want to go. Oh my God. Did I give such a fit and told him that there is no way she would ever do that to him. And that I dare you come home and not feel guilty about not going to her birthday party.
I
You know,
resemble that.
but the deeper thing about it is that what we're talking about today is their freedom. And it did dawn on me how good it must feel not to go and not feel guilty about it and just be okay with not going. It should be okay, you know? And yeah, I think there's a lot to learn from that. I would have gone regardless, if I were tired or not. And would I feel guilty? That's the part. I probably would have. I would have for sure felt guilty had I not gone to his best friend's birthday party.
Mm-hmm.
That's freedom. That is freedom, Priscilla. Same thing happened. We were invited to go back to Virginia for our godson's high school graduation. And getting to Virginia is a big deal. And, before we left, we said, we'll come back for his graduation. And then Mike before was like, I don't want to go. And I felt all the guilt, and I started trying to shame him into changing his decision. And he was just like, I changed my mind. I can change my mind if I want. I'm like, what does that even look like? And I did carry the guilt. I have to tell you, my godson got a big fat check. He got a guilt check. Yeah. That's a whole nother episode, right? Because then I started thinking about why I gave him so much money. Anywho, that is a whole deep conversation for another day.
Oh, that's like giving to get, right?
Yeah. Giving money to assuage guilt. But
yeah.
So he got a little bonus dollar amount. Yeah. But Mike just think about it again. He's like, no, I'm done. I'm done with the East Coast. I've just changed my mind. I'm not going. That is freedom. When you said Drusilla, when you said freedom, I'm like, yes, there is freedom in that.
Yeah.
Well, in today's lesson from A Course in Miracles, if you're doing the lessons following the days of the year from January to December, is I will step back and let him, meaning God, life, universe, lead the way. And I am telling you, this is one that I am aware that it's God's will, not mine, to be done, right? I'm aware of that. And I frequently take it back and think it's my will to be done. And so this whole episode is about really giving it up, letting go, letting God take the control and leading our way, right? And so I just thought that was funny that today's lesson was all about giving up control and letting the universe run the show. And that's exactly what we're talking about, is like men appear to be easier to do that than me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder why that is, though.
Allison Armstrong, I love her work on relationships. She wrote a book called The Queen's Code. And I just love that book and everything. I've taken several of her classes. And I don't know if this is all of it, but men are, as she describes it, men are single focused. And so other things around just don't work into it. I think that's one reason, right? Because they're focused on living the life, whatever they're focused on. It's not they're not focusing on all the other things that women are, because women, we are, I don't know what the word is, but from the beginning of time, as we were walking, we made notes. So we have, diffuse awareness is what it's called. We noticed everything, and men notice one thing. So I think that could be one of the reasons they don't carry so much guilt.
Yeah. And I wonder if it seems also like, I mean, like if my husband didn't go to the birthday party or didn't go to the graduation and I ended up going, I would be apologetic for him and making excuses for him and like feeling like I had to justify his decision and explain away his decision to everyone. And I get the sense that men don't do that. Like if the roles were reversed and John Mark went to the party and I stayed back, he's not out there like making excuses for me or justifying why I sat home. You know what I mean? Like, so it's
So if somebody asked him, Morgan, where's Morgan? What do you think he would say?
she's at home resting or whatever it is that I've chosen to do. You know what I mean? Like she sends her love and then on to whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But I think and that might be similar to what I would say too, but I think the energetic is somehow different. Like I'm doing it from a place of anxiousness and trying to like smooth things out, make sure nobody's feelings are hurt, make sure people aren't judging my husband for his don't think when it's the other way around. So
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've gotten better at it. I think I've learned from him over the years. And so I definitely think I have a sharper awareness and I tend to do that less, but it definitely has been the predominant pattern in my life.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Morgan. I did make a note to self on the way to the party, not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I specifically did, so I didn't make any excuses. As a matter of fact, only her mother asked if I came alone. She didn't ask where he was. And I just answered her, yeah, I came by myself. That was it. I didn't explain anything away. But what just came to mind was that when we were talking about the course and allowing God to lead, I feel like I do that so well with myself. So, but I don't know. It's just like, that's so double-sided. It's almost like what Melissa said a couple of episodes ago. She has this whole other category for her husband, and it doesn't apply to A Course in Miracles or something. And this is just also, I'm just being so dramatic right now because this is dramatic for me. Like, this is because I feel like it's a whole nother thing that now I'm going to have to work on incorporating.
Oh, darn it. You have to grow and expand.
Yes. Like it's a thing.
Like we've compartmentalized it.
Yeah. Yes. It's like, how can I work and have spent 10 years on this for myself and relinquishing control and being able to walk this walk, except when it comes to his walk and his journey, you know? So yeah, you know, I'm willing to see this differently.
It's so funny. My husband sometimes says, you love those lemonettes more than you love me. Because it's so easy, right? With you all, because we're walking the same path. And so, yeah, I think I suffer from the same thing, Drusilla, where he's my greatest teacher. And the lessons are harder for me to incorporate into my life or to take them and do something with them, you know, make the changes. But you know what? But I'm seeing progress this year. I am seeing progress. I am stopping myself at times when I get that urge, when I feel it coming up, I'm about to shit on him, you know.
Yeah.
I am stopping myself more times than I'm doing it. So that's really good.
Yay. That's worth celebrating.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's yay.
Thanks, Morgan.
Here's a little intense contemplation. Do we think we're better than them? Is that why we're doing it?
There's probably some of that in there, thinking we know what's best, or thinking I know what's best.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
since you brought up Allison Armstrong, I think it goes back to something she talks about, which is she says that men are not hairy women. Like we often misunderstand the way that men are responding to things because we're expecting them to think, feel, and behave the way that we think, feel, and behave as women, but they're men. And like, to Amanda's point earlier, they have a singular focus where we have a diffuse awareness. And like that's just one of the many different differences between men and women. So yeah, it's like expecting them to be, we're holding them to the same standard we hold ourselves to, which often feels punitive because we're holding ourselves to an unrealistic ideal. We're holding them to that same unrealistic ideal, except for it's even more unrealistic to them because they're not women. They don't operate the same way that we do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well said, Morgan. Well said. Well said, Allison Armstrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that led me to another question. And it's similar, but I missed this episode, about women. And I know that we all kind of talked about being alpha females.
Mm-hmm.
So we have become probably better to relate to their masculinity, but I don't think there's been that shift. So we shifted because women became employed outside of the household, right? And industrialized just like men. But men hasn't necessarily, the majority of men hasn't shifted. So does that make the gap even more difficult for us to comprehend, or have we closed the gap a little, do you think?
So can I just ask a clarifying question on your question?
Sure.
So you're saying that so women went into the workforce, but men, you said haven't shifted. So when you say haven't shifted, what exactly do you mean by that?
To more feminine characteristics.
Because we've
shifted.
We had the mass
okay, I got it.
The workforce, but they didn't have a mass movement into like the household roles. Some of them did, but it wasn't a mass situation.
Yeah.
So then restate the question once more, Drusilla.
Yeah. So I just was wondering, does that intensify what we're feeling? Like, does the gap become that much wider, or are we in a better position to close the gap a little? And I'm thinking I'm answering my own question because the awareness is it. We are aware now why the gap exists. And that's all we really need, because the cure is in the awareness.
I think for me, I have been emboldened, right? That masculine energy to actually speak it louder. So I am evolving, but now I would just stand more boldly, speak more loudly about things that I think need to change. So sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's judging and thinking I'm better than, or, just, trying to impose myself on those around me, specifically my husband, because he's the closest one to me. But I think that's how my masculinity has evolved. And if I think about it through that lens, I can see just women in general standing up with more power. Did that answer your question even randomly? Even like a little bit?
No, that's good. That's a good point.
I want to just shift the conversation slightly because we've been focusing on husbands, but we all have brothers and nephews. And I'm just curious if the relationships with them is as I'm going to just call it challenging to allow them to live their life versus it is with our husbands. Anybody have any insights on the other men in our life that we have besides our husbands that we interact with regularly?
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you are enjoying this episode. So did you know that the hosts of Five Lemons Laughing offer a wide range of spiritual counseling and coaching? Yes. And we know that no two journeys are the same. So if you're experiencing grief, health challenges, life transitions, or just seeking to deepen your spiritual path, we get it, and we are here for it. Or perhaps you're navigating difficult relationships, want to know more about calling in the love you deserve, or your career needs a reboot and you're seeking executive coaching through a spiritual lens. We've got you covered. Just visit Five Lemons Laughing, all spelled out, to explore how you can work with us. Individually or all of us, if you prefer. Your path is sacred, so why not walk it together? And if this episode speaks to you, the best way to support us is by liking, sharing, and subscribing. And if you know someone who loves high vibration content, please pass this along. Your kindness and your connection helps more people find us. And we're so grateful for your support. Thanks for listening and helping us to make a difference. And that's it for the announcements, but stay tuned. We are just getting started. In the second half, we'll dive deeper and share how to overcome some of the challenges we face and how to experience and move forward with insight, humor, and heart.
Anybody have any insights on the other men in our life that we have besides our husbands that we interact with regularly?
Wow. Go ahead, Amanda.
I don't interact with them as much as, my significant other, although my nephew lives with me, and I have just been able, it's a few times I'm thinking that maybe he should do something differently, but I just keep going back to he's grown. He's a grown ass man who can make his own decisions. And if I think about him differently than that, then I am not propping him up. I'm tearing him down. So I consciously made that decision in my mind not to judge. And then my brother, we didn't grow up in the same household. He lived with my dad. I lived with my mom. So it's really easy to detach from, thinking anything about him, except, he's living his life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I really only experience it with my husband in terms of like the males in my life, because same thing as Amanda. Just, have great relationships with my nephew, brother, dad, the other men in my life, but just don't spend as much one-on-one time with them as I do my partner, obviously. So don't get the opportunity to be triggered or challenged or, pushed into my discomfort zone by them. Hardly ever.
Yeah, for me, I would say, I had a son. That's probably the next closest male to me, and I pretty much raised him alone because his father was always in the military and always traveling around country. And I would say after my son was in college, I really allowed him to live pretty freely. And, you know, he would say the same. And I don't shit on him a lot, you know? And so I think that's a very good question you posed, Penny. So maybe it has more to do with the type of special relationships we have versus the masculinity. However, I will say with my brothers, so I grew up with six brothers. It could be I'm seeing a difference in personality because I'm seeing that my sisters, especially my two older sisters, that they did should on my brothers a lot more than I did. And maybe because all of my brothers are older than me. But my sisters were older than some of my brothers. And so they would, I guess, mother them a lot. And I do remember that they would say how they should live their lives, who they should date, who they should not date, and all of that. Whereas I tended to be more of the person who lets people live. So this thing with my husband is kind of, you know, just a thing that I'm gonna work through, right? Yeah, so great question, Penny.
Mhm.
Yeah. I was thinking about that because it does seem easier with the other men, mostly easier. I'm not going to say it's 100% easier, but I can, like my daughter, her husband, I can, you know, Anthony gets to live life the way he wants to. I can, it's been a journey for me, though. I have to tell you, I have a brother that I have had a lot of conflict with, but he's like 17 months older than me. And I think that's part of the problem because he was pushed out of mom's lap and I was put in it, you know? So there's some of that, I'm sure, unconscious. I'm sure it's unconscious. Um, but yeah, so I've had to really work a lot around our relationship and seeing him as whole, healthy, and complete and working perfectly, and that he doesn't need fixing because I had a lot of thoughts about what he should and should not be doing and the way he should and should not be behaving. And I also realized just thinking about that, he acted a lot like my dad. He acts a lot like my dad. He's getting better. And my dad was a hard person to get along with when he was alive. And I feel like I've projected that situation I grew up in with my dad onto my husband, and I projected it onto my brother too, because there's too many things that they do that remind me and trigger me back to that experience with my dad. And so it's something I have to constantly tell myself that my husband is not my dad. You know, he is not my dad. It's not the same. And so that's part of the journey that I've been on is I think it's been like an attempt to control the situation because I feel like I'm trying to control my relationship with my dad on both of them. And so if that makes sense. And so, yeah, so if I control Larry, then I'm controlling my dad, or, I'm not having the same situation go on that it went on with my dad. So, yeah. And Larry is the one I call him, I call him, oh my God, what is it in the pan, nonstick pans? What's that called?
Teflon.
Teflon. I call him Teflon because things just roll right off of him. It pisses me off at times. It does, because he can just let things go. And I sometimes keep them going in my head. Yeah.
Mhm. Isn't that another trait that we could learn from? Just let
Yeah.
it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, they say like men can get into these huge fights with each other and go play golf the next day with each other, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that we all, as women, have that mothering, fixing tendency, even though half of us here are not mothers. It's like, it's just in our DNA as women. It's what we're trained and taught from the time we're little girls. Like, yeah, very interesting. And I also find that, as over the past 5-10 years, I've become more aware of this and, started to try to shift in some of those areas. It's not always well received, even by the men who practice those same things. Like, it's interesting. Like, like, I don't know. Like, if I don't, return phone calls or respond to texts in a timely manner because, my phone is not my master, then all of a sudden people start thinking I'm rude, or, like, if I do some of the very same things that I admire in men, then, all of a sudden, like, I'm not very thoughtful, or I'm rude, or I'm bitchy, or whatever, lacking empathy, whatever,
I totally get that.
Yeah. So if the universe is own, so the macro also matches the micro. Macro, yes, I agree 100%. That the feminine energy of the universe is what we are embodying. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
It is Father God and Mother Nature, and Mother Nature is everything on earth. So that's why we feel the need to take care of everything and everybody, right?
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought it out to the macro, Drusilla, because it is like, I enjoy being a woman and all that entails. I like that I notice things around, like, I like that I have that diffuse awareness. And I am working on celebrating masculinity, like not being threatened by it. I went through a phase of, when I started doing the Allison Armstrong work, is like really looking, am I threatened by, really bold masculinity? Like, and I was a little bit like, because as I would see Mike as whole, he would become even more himself. And then his masculine traits would come out, and then I would shut them down, like, work to shut them down, because it was a little bit scary, right? Like, to have a man that, that was all man around. So that's interesting. And to take that out to like the big group think about, feminism, feminine, masculine, and allowing them both to thrive and to be in partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we allow them to thrive and be in partnership then? Like, what are some tools and tips that you all have, incorporated into your lives, because I think we're all on the journey of, interrupting the special relationships that we have. So what's been working for you?
You ask good questions, Penny.
Yeah.
The first one that comes to mind is just not judging him as doing it wrong. Right.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it would have to be the not projecting my own shame and guilt onto him about whatever decisions we made together or separately.
Yeah. And piggybacking off of that, not apologizing for, just not apologizing for my choices, not feeling like I have to make excuses for my choices. That's very empowering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't add anything to that. Actually, you guys have got it all. I mean, it just for me, actually, I can add one thing is just really checking in with myself to see where I'm at, like what's actually going on inside of me when I feel like things are starting to bubble up, and I want to control or project or shame or guilt. What's really going on. Just starting to really check in.
Yes, I like that, Penny, because it ties back to what you said earlier about that inner child. It's usually about the inner child.
Yeah.
It's not about that masculinity, that masculine energy. It's the relationship of that inner child and the masculine energy.
Mm-hmm. Boy, that hits the nail on the head, Drusilla.
Yes.
Yeah, for me.
I'd like to add one more thing. It's start celebrating the masculinity around.
Mm.
Yeah.
And see it instead of identifying it as bad or wrong. And just come to more neutral. Ooh, Melissa, I'm going to use your words, acceptance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Accepting the masculine energy and celebrating it.
Mm-hmm. I thought of another one too. It's like, how men come home from work and they plop down on the couch and turn on the TV and just need a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And women are so quick to judge. Like others, if you're leaning, you could be cleaner, to just take, set aside time to do nothing and not be productive for a minute. Like that's another thing I feel like men are really good at.
Yes, they are.
I'm going to judge them for a second. They're almost too good at it.
That's funny.
Oh, man. Yeah, that is funny. Yeah. And that's another thing of like, I am really bad at resting, but my husband's really good at it. Yeah. Is there anything
all of those
else?
tools. I love the celebrating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're attracted to it. That's why we, married the energy, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So to appreciate it a lot more is definitely something I will incorporate for sure.
Awesome. So are we ready for Penny's Post-its? Okay. I loved when Amanda, I think you said this, that men are not hairy women.
Oh, that was Morgan said it, and it's an Allison Armstrong quote.
Yeah. They are men. I know. That was so funny. And also, Morgan, you were talking about how men are single focused and women are, I said, notice everything, but then the diffused awareness. You and Amanda were both talking about that. I really liked that. That was great. And, all we really need to do is just let go and let them live their lives, right? Yeah. And then accept the masculine energy and celebrate it. I mean, that's really, we need it all. We need it all. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us for this playful and powerful conversation on our Five Lemons Laughing podcast. As we wrap up our From Should to Shame, what we can learn from the men in our lives is that we can take a moment and we can honor the ways that masculine energy invites us to stop, to step out of guilt and into greater freedom. This is really an episode on freedom, right? Really what if instead of carrying the weight of all the shoulds, we just allowed ourselves to move with more confidence, with more presence and unapologetic action. I heard Morgan say that so many times, just not apologizing. And that what if we trusted that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is just show up boldly? You talked about that, Amanda, and just simply be ourselves. That is just the most beautiful thing I think we can do. So This week, we invite you to notice those moments when you feel pulled by obligation or weighted down by expectations, and just pause, take a breath, and ask, what would it look like to choose ease, clarity, and a decisive action instead? Try letting go of just one should and replace it with a guilt-free could. Right?
Yeah.
Notice how it feels and celebrate any spark of freedom or joy that arises. And remember, the gifts we see in others are often a reflection of what's possible within ourselves. So here's to shining a little brighter, living a little bolder, and embracing all the wisdom of masculine and feminine. And that helps us become more fully who we are. And remember, if anything in this episode sparked anything in you, we would love to hear from you. And remember, we're all here to support you on your journey, because your transformation is our greatest joy. And we can't wait to connect with you again.
Yeah.
Have a really beautiful rest of your day.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.